I got an article here from Business Insider. Before you click out, I promise you, it's not boring, because we're going to be talking about the correct response to a very common conservative grifter adage, go woke, go broke. A claim they like to make about any popular piece of media that's decided to, I don't know, add a woman or a black person or a trans person or a gay person or, God forbid, a black gay trans woman to their given piece of media. Doing that or anything like that or signaling being pro that, I guess, is woke. And if you go woke, you'll go broke. This is an adage they've repeated a million times, and more often than not, it doesn't end up being true. But like 5 times, it did end up being true. Not for anything to do with wokeness, but the thing they called woke did go broke, so they took credit for it and people fell for their lies anyway. And it's very much like any kind of person who just repeatedly throws things at the wall until something sticks. Once something finally stuck, they held on to it, and they repeated that claim, and people actually believe it's real. The fact is, though, companies have historically always kowtowed to more progressive ideals and what they're willing to advertise next to, what ideas they're willing to push, what individuals they're willing to work with, even if they have certain, or whether or not they have certain controversial ideas. Like, these practices that the right has always complained about were always being done because these businesses were seeking out the path that made them the most money. They knew what path made them the most money, that being progressivism, because even when the right was complaining, generally stock prices were not impacted that much for that long. Think Nike and whatnot. There's been cases where they've succeeded, though. Think Bud Light. Anheuser-Busch took a massive hit and has hardly recovered, I think, from the Bud Light boycotts. And so they've had some W's. Overall, though, these companies have been smart, and they've known that even with how loud the right is, if they listen, they're actually going to be losing out on money, the way the right is claiming they already were. Because as loud as conservatives and chuds and grifters might be, they are not the general population. They are not the general target audience. That is until Trump won. There's been this vibe, I guess, and it really is a vibe, that the left has given up ever since Trump took office. And I have to admit, there's a lot of reasons things feel this way. It feels like there aren't as many protests as there were the first time Trump got elected. It feels like there hasn't been a proportional increase in outrage from the general population from the first time Trump got elected, despite how much worse this presidency has already been. It feels like we're not seeing as many people flip on Trump as we expected to see by this point, despite how bad his presidency has been. Things have gotten progressively worse, and it doesn't feel like people are loudly proclaiming this is the last straw. And meanwhile, the left is just kinda culturally taking a back seat. Here's a good example. Retard. I'm sure there'll be like 5 angry comments down below in the comments section, maybe. I'll tell you, 4 or 5 years ago, half the chat would be red frogs reeing. It would just be rees up and down the chat had I said that. Not because they were they're joking about it or, find it funny, because they're actually mad that I said the R slur. I used to have to argue with my chat over whether or not I could say the R slur. The fact is, either my community has gotten more chill, or the left as a whole is just like, hey, who cares? Like, oh, you can't, who gives a shit, like about to be like, hey, you can't say that, but then realizing, what's the fucking point, The left does feel like they've been operating that way. So the idea that woke is dead has taken off. Woke is dead is something that even some high-ranking business executives seem to be believing, because now ABC, Disney, Target, these are all companies that are choosing to kowtow to the conservative narrative, assuming that they're gonna make more money if they do. Well, about that. I think it's time we get into that Business Insider article now. But if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to leave a like and a comment as well. It really does help a lot. And maybe a hype as well. It's a new feature down below. You can hit the hype button. It's like a really direct way to push my content in the algorithm. Even if we get a couple dozen hypes, I'd be super happy. Anyway, let's get right into it. We vote with our dollars. People are boycotting Disney and canceling their streaming subscriptions. As people online debate cancel culture after Jimmy Kimmel's suspension and rehiring, some Disney critics are hitting the literal cancel button. Those angered by Disney-owned ABC's decision to take Kimmel off the air are turning to a new pressure point to express their anger at House of Mouse, canceling their streaming subscriptions. Google searches for cancel Disney Plus and cancel Hulu spiked in the days since the network's suspension of Kimmel, whose comments about Charlie Kirk's suspected shooter drew threats from the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, who, of course, South Park recently had some things to say about. Like, the newest South Park was, well, let me just say, by the end of the newest episode, this is what Brendan Carr looked like. Come on, can I get a full shot? You gotta get the full shot where you can see all of them here. Yeah, here we go. Particularly this frame. This is what Brendan Carr looks like by the end of the newest episode. He has broken most of the bones in his body. He has toxoplasmosis. He's eaten so many laxatives that he's nonstop shitting his pants. He's on life support, and his arm is permanently stuck in a Hitler salute. The newest South Park was not too kind to this guy. He is using his position as chair of the FCC to engage in blatant partisan censorship. And the South Park creators, whose main motivation when it comes to anything political has usually always just been who is the one arguing against what we see as freedom of speech, they're no longer on the good side of the South Park creators, as you can tell. Calls for a boycott against Disney have spread across social media, and some Disney and Hulu subscribers told Business Insider they're putting their money where their mouth is. Gary and Cheryl Anderson called from their honeymoon. The Atlanta-based realtors canceled their Disney streaming bundle on Thursday over concerns of freedom of speech, Cheryl, 51, said. That's right, even the boomers are seeing this for what it is. We don't even watch Jimmy Kimmel at all, Gary, 54, said. Things that are supposed to be thought of as a given as it relates to American life, those things are being constantly trampled down. There are some people starting to see what's happening. Gary was especially dissatisfied with ESPN, which is majority owned by Disney. He watched it every morning, but when Trump was elected, it became a negative way to start his day, he said. Kimmel was their final straw. The Andersons have a long history of boycotts, Gary said, that they stopped going to Publix and Papa John's over political issues. Quote, "We vote with our dollars," unquote, he said. They also said they wouldn't be resubscribing, even if ABC, or even after ABC, put Kimmel back on the air. Cheryl quoted Maya Angelou, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them." David Axel, 47, canceled his Disney Plus and Hulu subscription on Wednesday. Columbia, South Carolina resident is not much of a Kimmel fan, but he told Business Insider that he disapproved of the censorship. Even people, like, it's interesting that people who've never watched an episode of Jimmy Kimmel or really don't care for him or find him funny are like, you know what? No, this is not acceptable. And I'm right there with them. I do not like Jimmy Kimmel. I have a very long-standing grudge against Jimmy Kimmel as a person and as a person with a platform that goes back to when he brought on Markiplier and basically just tried to humiliate him the whole time. It's probably super copyrighted, so I doubt I can show clips from it, but it was rough, man. People from that era that remember that do not like Jimmy Kimmel. Regardless, he shouldn't be censored. He shouldn't be shut down. He shouldn't have his freedom of speech, his freedom to have a platform taken from him by the government. And so, people are outraged. This is blatant censorship. And thankfully, Americans who value the First Amendment are speaking out. It makes me happy to see. That's not all, though. Because Disney, ABC, Hulu, these are not the only brands suffering from massive multi-billion losses from boycotts coming from the left. Another big one, I covered this previously, but we're going to revisit it now, is Target. For those that don't know, Target stopped doing Pride Month. They stopped doing Pride Month, and this goes back to 2023. This is back when they originally stopped doing Pride stuff. Back 2 years ago, they already lost $1.2 billion, but more recently there was a big push to boycott them that led to record losses and their CEO, or I guess maybe their CFO, I forget, having to step down. Here, let me see if I can find it here. Here we go, from NPR. Shopper boycotts rarely hurt a company's bottom line, but that has not been the case this year for Target. This week, the retail giant once again reported sales were down, and earlier this year, executives admitted boycotts were part of the reason for that. NPR's Alina Selyuk is here to put all of this in context. So what's unusual about Target is that it has faced not one, but multiple boycotts over several years. Start in 2023, it had a crisis around its Pride Month collection. Conservative activists claimed its Pride clothes went too far, especially for kids. People were knocking down Pride displays, they were threatening store employees, and then Target decided to move those Pride displays or even remove them. And then flip-flop really upset the LGBTQ community and allies. So then fast forward to this year, and Target in January shifted its position on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They got rid of all their DEI stuff. The company was one of the many to add DEI policies after the killing of George Floyd in 2020, and in Target's hometown of Minneapolis. But as President Trump took office and was campaigning against DEI, Target was one of the companies to scale back on diversity goals, and this has led to a really big boycott, especially for black shoppers. So what do we know about the financial... Oh, no, NPR, I do not want to donate. So what do we know about the financial effect on all of this? In May, Target executives included the DEI boycott in the list of reasons why the sales were down. And this was remarkable because a concession like this does not happen often. Soon after, CEO Brian Cornell wrote an op-ed saying Target's commitment to diversity and inclusion is, quote, unwavering. Target has kept up its plan to invest in black-owned businesses. Now there are some people claiming this week that boycotts also prompted Cornell to announce he's stepping down as CEO. That is not the case, though. Exactly. Target did signal his retirement plan years ago, but it all fuels this bad trend for Target, where sales have now been down or flat for almost 3 years. And you can't pin that all on boycotts, right? There are other problems too, right? This is a conversation I'm reading a transcript of because it's NPR. No, a lot has gone wrong at Target. Actually, you know what? Let's listen to it. I think we can just listen to this, right? Let's give my voice a break.
Shopper boycotts rarely hurt a company's bottom line, but that has not been the case this year for Target. This week, the retail giant once again reported sales were down, and earlier this year, executives admitted boycotts were part of a reason for that. NPR's Alina Selyuk is here to put this all in context. Alina, what makes these boycotts different?
So what's unusual about Target is that it has faced not one, but multiple boycotts over several years. Start in 2023, it had a crisis around its Pride Month collection. Conservative activists claimed its Pride clothes went too far, especially for kids. People were knocking down Pride displays. They were threatening store employees. And then Target decided to move those Pride displays or even remove them. And the flip-flop really upset the LGBTQ community and allies. So then fast forward to this year, and Target in January shifted its position on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The company was one of many to add DEI policies after the police killing of George Floyd in 2020 in Target's hometown in Minneapolis. But as President Trump took office and he was campaigning against DEI, Target was one of the companies to scale back on diversity goals. And this led to a really big boycott, especially by black shoppers.
So what do we know about the financial effect of all of this?
Sure. In May, Target executives included the DEI boycott in the list of reasons why the sales were down. And this was remarkable because a concession like that does not happen often. Soon after, CEO Brian Cornell wrote an op-ed saying,
that's interesting how they immediately were able to identify, oh fuck, us trying to appease conservatives and MAGA did not end up paying off. It was not a financially sound decision, and yet it took like a decade for them to say, maybe go woke, go broke is true. And they tried to appease the right, and it just immediately became clear that was not the right choice. Like, you gotta love it, right? How fast they were like, oh fuck, we made a mistake, dude. We did not make the right choice here. Mind you, they made this terrible choice to appease the right after years of boycotts from the right, so they were already down a little bit. Like, they weren't doing great because there was some level of bumpiness coming from right-wing anger. Cucking out to the right didn't make the right happy with them, though. The right didn't start shopping at Target again, so they were just on a downward trajectory that just spiked hard down because of this.
saying Target's commitment to diversity and inclusion is, quote, unwavering. Target has kept up its plan to invest in Black-owned businesses. Now, there are some people claiming this week that boycotts also prompted Cornell to announce he's stepping down as CEO, and that is not the case exactly. Target did signal his retirement plan years ago, but it all fuels this bad trend at Target where sales have now been down or flat for almost 3 years.
And you can't pin that all on boycotts, right? What are the other problems?
No, a lot has gone wrong at Target. Inflation has been a particularly painful problem. The company also made missteps ever since the pandemic, like it overstocked on stuff people did not want. I talked to Jamie Myers. He's a senior analyst at the investment firm Laffer Tengler, and he argues Target is having an identity crisis.
Target doesn't have the scale to be a Walmart or an Amazon with those sort of everyday low prices. It's not a dollar store. It's not Dollar General. It's not Dollar Tree.
It's not cheap, but it's also not a luxury. And often in retail, being the rival stuck in the middle can be the worst place.
Getting back to the boycott problem specifically, though, what can other companies learn from this?
I think part of it is knowing your audience. In Target's case, a lot of its shoppers fell on one side of the DEI debate, feeling like Target abandoned its Black shoppers and employees, and those were key shoppers.
I feel like Target has been on its way out since I was a teenager as well. Like, since I was, in middle school. I feel like Target has been, was on a slow decline back then, and then as I got older, it was just, I feel like Targets have been getting closed all over the place my whole teenage and adult life. That company was already on its way out. Going the way of Kmart, more or less, and this is not helping. I genuinely think in the next couple years, we're gonna see Target be the next Kmart. Some of you in chat are probably asking yourselves right now, what the fuck is Kmart? And my answer to that question is exactly.
Those were key shoppers. But also, it's the waffling response that often gets companies. What do you stand for? Do you stand for anything? We saw this with Budweiser 2 years ago. It faced a big boycott from the conservative corner after hiring a transgender TikToker for a PR campaign. But then it flipped its position and distanced itself from her, upsetting the LGBTQ community in the process. Historically, branding experts will say boycotts are a flash in the long run, and unfortunately for Target, its sales are sour for many more reasons than boycotts.
NPR's Alina Selyuk, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It goes to show, this boycott in particular has actually had a substantial, long-lasting effect on the company, to the point where, they have not bounced back from it, much less all the other, contextual reasons that have also hurt Target immensely on top of said boycott. I feel like the left has done a really good job of picking its targets here. This is what I like to see. Actual working boycotts that put serious pressure on companies to not make themselves cuck to one side or another, super partisan. The right will try to claim that, accepting pressure from the left to bring back Jimmy Kimmel is being partisan, but no, I'd say bringing back someone that you are censoring on the behest of the president because the president doesn't like what they have to say, I'd say undoing that is not partisan. I'd say it's being bipartisan. Enforcing bipartisanship, which is a good thing, in fact. Something the right has claimed they are in favor of for a long time, up until the point where being bipartisan does not serve their purposes, and then they're against it. I used to work at Kmart, I remember. Well, there you go, the Redrew. There you go. Anyway, like I said before, if you enjoyed this segment, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way, and you want to support my content, please consider leaving a like and a comment on this video. Whether you're watching this as a stream right now or in the future when it comes out as a video, it really does help a lot. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to hype as well. I really appreciate the hypes, new feature on YouTube that helps to boost content as well. So like, comment, and hype to make a conservative want to gripe. And, subscribe and ring the bell icon if you haven't already. Follow my social medias linked down below, and if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the link down below. But regardless of how you support me, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I hope you have a good one.